Hello and welcome to the fifth in the Idioms for IELTS series. So let's go. So remember that in the speaking IELTS test, idioms help you sound more natural, but in writing, the idioms need to be changed into something more academic. And in this lesson, we're going to look at 5 idioms for work. We'll look at speaking first, and then we'll look at writing. So what do we talk about in the speaking exam when we talk about the topic of work? Well, first of all, we could talk about your current job. We could talk about a dream career in the future, what you would like to do in the future, or the workplace culture. What is your job like now, or what was your job like when you were working? Writing task 2 might have a slightly different focus where they're focusing on job satisfaction, work-life balance, and employment versus unemployment, which is often a topic. So let's have a look at some of these idioms, and 5 I've chosen overall. So let's have a look at them first in context. So the first one is to climb the ladder. So that means to make progress in your job. He worked hard to climb the career ladder in his company. If you had to write this, you would say something like, he worked consistently to advance his position within the organization. So this is for speaking, not writing. So when you make the sentence in writing, you must make it more formal and academic. Another one, a dead-end job, a job with no future prospects. I left because it was a dead-end job. So that would be a speaking answer. And in writing, you would say, I left because the position offered no opportunities for advancement. So again, you would use this idiom in a speaking example. When you go to writing, you have to make it much more formal. Next one, to get the sack, same meaning as to be fired, for example. That's when you're dismissed from a job. So the speaking example would be he was always late, so he got the sack. And the writing example could be he was dismissed from his role due to persistent lateness. Basically, he was late all the time and they got rid of him. So this is a very informal idiom for speaking. Then we have to call the shots. So to call the shots means that you're the boss, you are in control. In speaking, you could say, in this office, the manager calls the shots. He's the boss. But in writing, you couldn't say it, so you have to reformulate it and make it more formal. So the manager is responsible for making key decisions in the workplace. Again, the idiom is used for speaking, but not writing. You have to think about how to restructure, reformulate the words. And finally, to burn the midnight oil, that means to work late into the night. Speaking example would be I had to burn the midnight oil to finish the project. So I had to work late into the night in order to finish this project. But the writing would say something slightly different. I had to work late into the night to complete the project. Very simple sounding. And again, this idiom is good for speaking. Then you have to reformulate it into formal academic writing English. All right, so let's look at the first one, to climb the career ladder. So in speaking, a candidate may say he worked hard to climb the career ladder in his company. So I want you to think for a second and think how you would reformulate this sentence and make it more formal for your writing task too. So think, and then I'll show you a possible answer. Let's have a quick look. The writing could say, he worked consistently to advance his position within the organization. So the language is a little bit more formal. He worked consistently instead of he worked hard. A dead end job, I left because it was a dead end job. So what was the writing task 2 possible formal answer? I left because the position offered no opportunities for advancement. So did you remember? I left because the position offered no opportunities for advancement. To get the sack, so the speaking was he was always late, so he got the sack. So what's the writing? Do you remember? He was always late, so he got the sack. How did we make this into formal sounding writing task 2? He was dismissed from his role due to persistent lateness. So dismissed from his role means that he got the sack because he was always late. It's persistent lateness, due to persistent lateness instead of saying because, right? Remember to burn the midnight oil from a moment ago? So what was the speaking example? I had to burn the midnight oil to finish the project. So what was the writing task 2 example? I had to burn the midnight oil to finish the project. Do you remember? All right, let's have a look. I had to work late into the night to complete the project. Okay. So these were the examples, and these examples of speaking and writing basically mean the same thing, but the speaking is more informal, the writing is more formal. And so these are the idioms. So do you remember the meaning of to call the shots? Let's have a look at the example. The speaking example was, in this office, the manager calls the shots. What was the writing? Do you remember the example from earlier? The writing, the manager is responsible for making key decisions in the workplace. That's the speaking and writing, the informal and the formal. Therefore, we'll move on to speaking part 2 now. So here's a speaking part 2 question, a cue card type of question. Describe a job you would like to have in the future. Sample answer. I'd like to work in marketing. I think it offers lots of opportunities to climb the career ladder. Of course, it might mean burning the midnight oil sometimes, but I enjoy working hard to achieve results. So translate what that means: to burn the midnight oil and to climb the career ladder. So you can pause the video and you can try to reformulate one without me. Here's the question. Describe your dream job using at least 2 of today's idioms. So go back, pause the video, go back if you like, and try to describe your dream job and put the idioms into context. In the meantime, let's move on to writing task 2. So this is formal this time. Some people believe that job satisfaction is more important than job security. So this is a very common task 2 question. It's often in the speaking also. It's like the base question: what's more important when you work? Is it happiness or money? These kind of basic questions. Anyway, so some people believe that job satisfaction is more important than job security. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So an informal reply, which is no good for writing task 2, may say, many employees stay in dead-end jobs because they value job security. So they stay in dead-end jobs because they value job security, but we cannot answer this because the idiom is too informal. So we try to look for a formal answer. So many employees remain in positions with limited opportunities for advancement because they value job security. Okay, so we really just changed that idiom, and you can see the idiom and then you can see the formal version. Again, you can take one idiom from today and try and rewrite it in a suitably formal style for writing task 2. In fact, you could look at all 5 and try to make a formal version yourself. Mine are just suggestions. So quickly to recap over today, we looked at idioms to do with work. For example, climb the career ladder, a dead-end job, get the sack, call the shots, burn the midnight oil. As I always say, remember that these idioms sound very natural when you're speaking, and that's the importance of these idioms. And of course, then in writing, remember to change, to reformulate. If you want some homework to try yourself, record a speaking part 2 answer about your current or future job that you would like using some of these idioms. Or you could rewrite this sentence for writing. In my last job, I wanted to climb the career ladder, but there were no opportunities. So your job is to rewrite it and make this much more formal. All right? So that's the end of video 5 about work idioms, and the next time I'll see you for video 6 on the environment, everyone's favourite topic, of course. So see you next time.